Dear ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to reflect on the invisible storms we all carry inside: anger, jealousy, and ill will. These emotions appear silently, like shadows following our steps. They shape our reactions, cloud our clarity, and influence how we see ourselves and others. But as Master Shi Heng Yi teaches, every inner storm can be transformed, not by escaping it, but by understanding it. Awareness is the first and most essential step to inner freedom, because without awareness, we remain prisoners of our automatic reactions. When anger rises, most people believe the anger is who they are. When jealousy appears, they accept the emotion as truth. When ill will surfaces, they let it dictate their actions. But awareness creates distance. It is like turning on a light in a dark room. You suddenly see what is around you instead of stumbling blindly. When you observe your emotions as passing experiences instead of permanent identities, you reclaim the ability to respond consciously instead of reacting impulsively. Awareness means sensing the first spark of irritation before it becomes a fire. It means noticing the tension in your chest, the heat in your face, or the rapid beating of your heart before anger takes control. It means recognizing the silent comparison your mind creates when jealousy forms, the fear of losing something, the insecurity that whispers beneath it. It means catching the subtle judgments that slowly turn into ill will. The moment you can see the emotion arising is the moment it loses its power over you. This awareness is not harsh and it is not judgmental. It is gentle observation. It is learning to say, "This is anger arising inside me," instead of "I am angry." These two statements may look similar, but they are worlds apart. In the first, you remain the observer. In the second, you become the emotion. When you are the observer, you gain freedom. When you are the emotion, you are trapped. Awareness requires practice. It is like training a muscle that has been unused for years. Each time you catch yourself reacting, you begin strengthening this inner muscle. Some people live their entire lives without ever observing their inner world. They simply carry out emotional impulses as if they were commands. But the moment you begin watching, something extraordinary happens. You discover that your emotions rise and fall like waves, and you are the vast ocean beneath them. The waves cannot control the ocean holds them. When awareness becomes strong, negative emotions lose their ability to throw you off balance because you can see them clearly. You begin to understand what triggers you, what scares you, what parts of you are still wounded, and what beliefs shape your emotional responses. Awareness is like a mirror that reflects your inner world without distortion. When you look into this mirror long enough, the hidden patterns of your life become visible. Patterns such as reacting defensively, comparing yourself to others, holding grudges, or feeling threatened by small things. These patterns are not who you are. They are habits of the mind, and habits cannot survive under the light of awareness. Awareness also brings honesty. You begin to acknowledge your own weaknesses, fears, and insecurities without shame. You stop blaming others for your inner state because you understand that true peace comes from your own clarity, not from changing the world around you. This shift marks the beginning of emotional maturity, the recognition that the battlefield is within, not outside. As awareness deepens, you gain the ability to pause before reacting. This pause is incredibly powerful. It gives you the space to decide whether you want to feed the anger, fuel the jealousy, or cultivate the ill will, or whether you want to choose a different path. This tiny moment of awareness can change the entire direction of your life. Most people think transformation requires dramatic efforts, but often it begins with a single pause, a single breath, a single act of awareness that interrupts a lifetime of unconscious reactions. Awareness is the foundation upon which all emotional mastery is built. Without it, no technique, no advice, no teaching can truly help. With it, even the smallest lesson becomes powerful. Once you develop the ability to watch your emotions without getting lost in them, you begin to reclaim your life from the grip of negativity. You realize that peace is not something you must find outside. It is something you uncover within by seeing clearly. Through awareness, you free yourself from the chains of anger, jealousy, and ill will, not by fighting them, but by understanding them. Emotions are signals, not enemies, and understanding this truth changes the entire way we experience inner conflict. Most people grow up believing that negative emotions such as anger, jealousy, or ill will are flaws, something shameful or dangerous that must be hidden or suppressed. But suppression only turns these emotions into pressure inside the mind, and pressure always looks for an escape. The more you push emotions down, the stronger they return. However, when you learn to see emotions as signals, they become guides instead of threats. They begin to show you what is unresolved within you, where you are still hurting, what you fear, and what you need to heal. Anger, for example, is often misunderstood. People think anger is a reaction to others, but anger is actually a reaction to your own unaddressed pain. It is the mind's way of saying, "Something inside me needs attention." When someone's words trigger anger, it is rarely the words themselves. It is the emotion beneath them. Maybe it is disrespect you once experienced. Maybe it is a fear of being ignored. Maybe it is a wound from childhood that has never been healed. Anger points to these deeper layers. It is a messenger knocking on the door of your awareness, telling you where to look. Instead of treating anger as an attack, you begin to treat it as information. It shows you the gap between how you want life to be and how you currently perceive it. Jealousy is another emotion that reveals powerful inner truths. It is not simply about wanting what others have. It is about the fear that you are not enough. Jealousy exposes insecurities, areas where you feel incomplete or unworthy. Rather than hating yourself for feeling jealous, you begin to ask what part of you feels lacking. Jealousy highlights desires you have neglected, dreams you have abandoned, or areas of your life you have ignored. It pushes you to grow by revealing where your self-image is fragile. When seen as a signal, jealousy becomes a tool for self-understanding, guiding you toward what you truly value. Ill will, resentment, or hostility often arise when we feel threatened, judged, or harmed. But even these emotions are signals that point inward. Ill will shows you where your boundaries are weak, where your expectations are too rigid, or where old wounds remain sensitive. The moment you see ill will as a sign of inner imbalance rather than as a justified reaction to others, you regain control. These emotions reveal what needs healing, not who needs blaming. They direct you toward compassion and clarity by showing you where the mind is trapped. Seeing emotions as signals requires curiosity rather than resistance. Instead of pushing emotions away, you begin asking questions. What is this feeling trying to show me? Where did it come from? What belief is behind it? What story am I telling myself? This simple shift from reacting to exploring changes everything. The emotion begins to soften because it has been acknowledged. The mind stops fighting itself. You stop feeling like a victim of your emotional states. When emotions become teachers, you transform your inner life. You begin to understand that every emotion, even the painful ones, has a purpose. They show you your values, your fears, your past wounds, and your hidden strengths. Anger shows you your boundaries. Jealousy shows you your desires. Ill will shows you your unresolved pain. Every emotion carries wisdom if you are willing to listen. No emotion rises randomly. There is always a reason. And when you begin listening to the messages your emotions deliver, you find that they dissolve naturally because their purpose has been fulfilled. This approach replaces self-judgment with self-understanding. You stop criticizing yourself for feeling angry or jealous or envious. Instead, you begin to appreciate your emotional system as a compass that guides you toward growth. You realize that emotions don't define your character, they reveal your needs. And once you understand your needs, you can meet them with awareness instead of reacting blindly. This is how emotional maturity is built, not by avoiding negative feelings, but by decoding them. When emotions become signals instead of enemies, you begin to navigate your inner world with greater clarity, compassion, and wisdom. You stop fearing your emotions and instead use them as tools for transformation. Stillness allows clarity because in the silence of the mind, truths that were hidden suddenly become visible. Most of human suffering comes from reacting too quickly, speaking before thinking, responding before understanding, deciding before pausing. The mind, when left unobserved, behaves like a storm, turbulent, noisy, and chaotic. But stillness is like stepping out of the storm and watching it calmly from a distance. The moment you pause, the moment you take a breath, the moment you choose not to react immediately, you create a space where wisdom can enter. This stillness is not the absence of thought. It is the ability to see thoughts clearly. It is the moment when anger rises and you feel its heat, yet instead of letting it control your actions, you simply watch it. In that watching, the intensity begins to fade. Stillness helps you understand where the emotion came from, whether it is worth responding to, and whether your reaction will help or harm. Without stillness, emotions are like flashes of lightning, bright, sudden, and overwhelming. With stillness, the same emotions appear more like clouds, temporary, drifting, without absolute power over you. When jealousy tries to take hold, stillness stops you from falling into the cycle of comparison. It prevents the mind from creating stories like "I am not enough," "they are better than me," or "I am losing something precious." Stillness interrupts the inner dialogue that fuels insecurity. It gives you a moment to breathe, observe the emotion, and see it for what it is, a thought, not a truth. That moment of calm is the difference between sinking deeper into jealousy or rising above it with dignity. Stillness also exposes the roots of ill will. When someone hurts you, the mind instantly reacts with defensiveness, resentment, or the desire to strike back. But if you pause before acting, the stillness reveals something deeper. Perhaps the person acted out of their own pain. Perhaps you misinterpreted their intentions. Or perhaps your reaction is influenced by past wounds. Stillness brings understanding by softening the emotional tension. It gives you the chance to choose your response instead of being controlled by old patterns. One of the greatest powers of stillness is that it slows time not literally, but emotionally. What usually happens in a split second becomes stretched long enough for you to see it clearly. You begin to recognize the small signs that precede emotional explosions. The tightening of your shoulders, the shallow breathing, the shift in your thoughts. When you catch these signs early, you can redirect your energy before the emotion becomes too strong. This early recognition is only possible through the habit of stillness, which trains you to remain present instead of being swept away by your thoughts. Stillness also teaches patience. It helps you wait before reacting, before concluding, before judging. Many conflicts, whether internal or external, arise because people respond without waiting for clarity. They react based on assumptions, misunderstandings, or fears. But when you cultivate stillness, you develop the strength to hold your emotions without immediately releasing them through actions or words. This patience becomes your shield, preventing unnecessary damage to yourself and others. Furthermore, stillness connects you to your inner wisdom. In moments of silence, the mind stops racing and becomes receptive. Answers that you could not find earlier suddenly appear. The tangle of confusion begins to unravel. Problems that seemed overwhelming become simpler and clearer. This wisdom does not come from outside. It comes from the quiet intelligence that exists within every human being, but can only be heard when the noise of constant thinking fades. Stillness is also deeply healing. It gives your nervous system a chance to return to balance. It slows your heartbeat, relaxes your muscles, and brings your mind back to the present moment. When you sit in stillness, even for a few seconds, you are giving yourself a moment of peace in a world full of noise. Over time, this practice transforms your inner landscape. You become less reactive, more observant, more stable, and more grounded. You begin to realize that not every thought deserves attention, not every emotion requires action, and not every situation needs your immediate involvement. As stillness becomes a part of your life, clarity becomes your natural state. You start to understand yourself better, see situations more accurately, and respond with more compassion. You no longer act from emotional turbulence, but from inner stability. Stillness becomes your anchor, holding you steady even when storms rise around you. And in this deep inner calm, you gain the ability to navigate life with far greater wisdom and freedom. Compassion dissolves negativity because it transforms the way you see yourself, others, and situations that trigger emotional suffering. Most negative emotions are born from misunderstanding your own pain, misunderstanding the pain of others, and misunderstanding the true nature of human experience. When compassion enters the mind, it shifts the entire emotional landscape. It softens the harsh edges, melts tension, and opens the heart to deeper understanding. Compassion is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength because it allows you to face anger, jealousy, and ill will without adding more negativity to the world. Compassion begins with yourself. Many people are harsh toward their own emotions. When they feel angry, they condemn themselves. When jealousy rises, they feel ashamed. When ill will appears, they believe they are bad or unworthy. But compassion teaches that emotions are not failures. They are human experiences. They are signs that something inside needs kindness, attention, and healing. When you treat your own emotions with gentleness instead of harshness, you reduce the intensity of suffering. You stop fighting yourself and begin understanding yourself. This internal shift immediately weakens the grip of negativity, because nothing heals faster than kindness directed inward. Self-compassion allows you to see that your reactions come from wounds, from past hurts, from unmet needs, and from deep fears. Instead of punishing yourself for feeling angry or jealous, you begin to ask, what part of me is hurting right now? This simple question opens the door to healing. When you acknowledge your own pain instead of denying it, you break the cycle of inner violence. Compassion turns your attention inward like a gentle light, revealing the hidden places where love is missing. And wherever love enters, negativity begins to dissolve. Compassion toward others is equally transformative. When someone behaves disrespectfully, hurtfully, or unfairly, the natural reaction is anger or ill will. But compassion allows you to look deeper than the surface behavior. It helps you see that people act out of their own suffering. A person who lashes out is often carrying unspoken emotional burdens. Someone who is jealous may be struggling with insecurity. Someone who lies or betrays may be trapped in fear or confusion. This does not excuse their behavior, but it helps you understand it. The moment you see the suffering behind someone's actions, your desire to attack them weakens. Compassion does not mean you allow harmful behavior. It means you recognize that pain exists on both sides. Compassion also dissolves jealousy by shifting your focus from comparison to connection. Jealousy arises from the belief that someone else's success diminishes your own worth. But when compassion is present, you begin to celebrate others instead of comparing yourself to them. You recognize that every person is on a unique journey with their own struggles and victories. Compassion reminds you that someone who appears successful may have battled silently for years. Someone who seems confident today may have been broken yesterday. When you allow compassion to color your perspective, jealousy transforms into admiration or inspiration. Instead of feeling threatened by others, you feel connected to them through shared humanity. Another profound effect of compassion is the reduction of resentment and ill will. Ill will thrives in a rigid mind, a mind that sees others as enemies, obstacles, or threats. But compassion softens this rigidity. It reminds you that every human being experiences fear, pain, confusion, and mistakes. When you understand this, your heart begins to release the heavy burden of resentment. You realize that holding ill will harms you more than it harms anyone else. It keeps your mind chained to negativity. Compassion frees you by dissolving the false separation between you and others. It helps you forgive, not because the other person is always right, but because you deserve peace. Compassion does not eliminate boundaries, it strengthens them. When you approach life with compassion, you no longer react from emotional chaos. You respond with clarity. You can say no without hatred, set limits without anger, and protect your peace without attacking others. Compassion gives you emotional balance. It allows you to stand firm without losing your humanity. Moreover, compassion expands your awareness. The more you practice compassion, the more you recognize that everyone is carrying an invisible story. Some people battle trauma, some struggle with loneliness, some are overwhelmed by responsibilities. Some are afraid to be seen. Compassion opens your understanding to these silent truths. It transforms your perception of the world and replaces harsh judgment with gentle curiosity. When compassion becomes a habit, your mind becomes lighter. You stop taking things personally because you realize that most actions from others are reflections of their inner world, not judgments of your worth. You stop reacting impulsively because compassion creates space between stimulus and response, space filled with understanding instead of hostility. This spaciousness is where negativity loses its power. It cannot survive in a heart that chooses to understand rather than attack. Compassion also restores harmony in relationships, whether it is a partner, friend, family member, or colleague. Compassion dissolves the tension that negative emotions create. It helps you communicate from a place of calm rather than aggression. It opens the door to forgiveness and healing conversations. It helps you listen without defensiveness, speak without anger, and respond without fear. Compassion becomes the bridge that reconnects hearts that have drifted apart due to misunderstanding or emotional turbulence. In its highest form, compassion becomes a way of life. It shapes your thoughts, softens your reactions, influences your decisions, and guides your speech. It turns everyday interactions into opportunities to understand rather than judge. It transforms conflict into connection. It makes you a source of peace rather than chaos. And above all, compassion frees your heart from the prison of negativity. When you choose compassion, you choose peace. You choose clarity. You choose healing. You choose a life that rises above anger, jealousy, and ill will, not by force, but by love. Mastery of emotions is mastery of life because every experience you encounter is filtered through your inner state. When your emotions control you, life feels unpredictable and overwhelming. But when you gain mastery over your emotions, life becomes clearer, calmer, and more aligned with your intentions. Emotional mastery does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being controlled by what you feel. You become the driver of your inner world instead of a passenger dragged by old habits, past wounds, and unconscious reactions. Most people believe that external circumstances determine their happiness. They think peace comes when the world behaves according to their expectations. But the truth is that the world will always shift, people will always change, challenges will always arise, and situations will never align perfectly. Emotional mastery is the ability to maintain inner stability regardless of what happens around you. It is the realization that your power lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling your response to it. When you master your emotions, anger becomes a visitor instead of a ruler. You may still feel its heat, but you recognize that you are not obligated to act on it. You create enough inner space to choose a wiser response. This ability transforms your relationships because you no longer speak words you regret or make decisions clouded by frustration. You begin to respond with clarity rather than react with impulse. Jealousy, when mastered, becomes a signal rather than a spiral. Instead of drowning in comparisons, you use jealousy as guidance to understand your desires, aspirations, and insecurities. You rise above the emotion by seeing it as a teacher showing you what you truly value. Emotional mastery helps you transform jealousy into inspiration. You learn to admire others without diminishing your own worth. This shift alone unlocks freedom from inner conflict and endless self-judgment. Ill will loses its fuel in the presence of emotional mastery. Instead of feeding grudges or hostility, you learn to release them. You recognize that resentment harms your own peace far more than it harms others. Emotional mastery gives you the strength to let go, not because others always deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve liberation from the emotional weight. You realize that holding negativity ties you to the very thing you want to escape. Mastery also means understanding the difference between emotions and actions. Many people believe that feeling something strongly justifies acting on it, but mastery teaches that emotions are experiences, not instruction. You can feel anger without attacking, feel jealousy without self-hatred, feel frustration without aggression, feel sadness without despair. This separation between feeling and acting is one of the highest forms of inner discipline. It prevents emotional storms from destroying relationships, opportunities, and inner harmony. Emotional mastery is cultivated through awareness, patience, and practice. The mind is like a wild horse. If left untrained, it runs in every direction, dragging you wherever it pleases. But if trained with consistency and compassion, it becomes a powerful ally. Mastery does not happen overnight. It grows through small moments of recognition, small pauses, small choices that gradually strengthen your ability to stay centered. Each time you observe instead of react, you take one step closer to mastering your inner world. Another aspect of emotional mastery is the ability to remain grounded in difficult moments. When criticism comes, instead of collapsing into insecurity, you stay centered. When stress rises, instead of panicking, you breathe through it. When conflict appears, instead of escalating it, you bring calmness. This inner steadiness becomes your anchor. People around you may be chaotic, but their chaos no longer drags you into emotional turbulence. You become a stabilizing force in your environment, someone who remains calm under pressure. Mastery of emotions also means you are no longer manipulated by external opinions. Most emotional pain arises from worrying about what others think, trying to impress them, or fearing their judgment. But when you master your emotions, you disconnect your worth from external validation. You no longer allow someone's words to decide your value. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not break you. You stand in your inner truth with clarity and confidence. As emotional mastery deepens, you begin to experience life with a new level of freedom. You start making decisions based on wisdom rather than emotional impulses. You cultivate healthier relationships because you communicate with intention rather than reactivity. You build a stronger sense of identity because you are no longer shaped by temporary emotions. Inner stability becomes your natural home. Mastery does not eliminate emotions, it elevates them. It transforms fear into courage, anger into clarity, jealousy into motivation, sadness into compassion, and confusion into insight. It allows you to use emotions as tools instead of being used by them. When you reach this level of inner maturity, your life becomes more meaningful, peaceful, and authentic. In the highest form of emotional mastery, you learn that true power is quiet. It is not found in controlling others or dominating situations, but in controlling yourself. It is the ability to stay calm when insulted, patient when frustrated, kind when challenged, and understanding when tested. This inner strength becomes unshakable. The world may create waves, but you remain the ocean beneath them, deep, steady, and unmoved. Emotional mastery is the path to real freedom. It gives you the ability to shape your destiny from the inside out. It allows you to rise above negativity, transform your thinking, and build a life guided by clarity rather than chaos. When you master your emotions, you master your decisions. When you master your decisions, you master your path. And when you master your path, you master your life.